Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Little Miss Funeral YouTube channel. Today I wanted to talk about why it's important but not necessary to have a funeral director present for a memorial service. If a family has experienced a loss, they're going to be sitting down with a funeral professional to go over the contract and the general price list for all of the services that they have selected. If a family selects a service like a direct cremation with a memorial to follow, they may be asked by the professional if they want a director present for those services. Now, if you want a funeral director present for a memorial service following a disposition, so what I mean by that is if you have a cremation first, or if you have a burial first and then you want a gathering afterwards without the physical body present, you may be wondering why you would need a funeral director there, especially because that's going to be an additional charge for the supervision. Now, the first thing that I want to say is it's not a necessity. When people come in and sit down with me and they question that price, I'll tell them if they don't want a funeral director present at the service or at the church or at whatever kind of gathering they're having outside of the funeral home, they don't have to pay for that charge if they don't want us there. But I really believe in the importance of having somebody there to organize everything. Now, for those of you who are familiar with my channel and may have seen some of my funeral vlogs that I've put out in the past, you will definitely see that I do a majority of hiding during these services. So when the actual funeral or memorial is going on, and if it's for cremated remains or if a body's not present, my job is basically to just stay out of the way and let the minister or the priest perform the service that the family wants to have. So why are you paying for me to sit there? There's a lot of organization that goes into planning for these kinds of services. And even though priests and ministers take care of the bulk of the service themselves, the beginning and the ending are really when it is important to have a funeral professional present. If you've lost a loved one and you're having a gathering at a church, you don't want to have to be worrying about organizing all of these little details, because that's what it comes down to, these little details that can make or break the flow of a service. There may be instances when the cars that are arriving to these services need to be parked a particular way when they're arriving, whether or not it's street parking that's available or an actual parking lot. The funeral professionals can be the ones who tell people where to go and where this available parking is. When arriving inside of the church or the venue, oftentimes there are going to be register books and prayer cards or pamphlets and booklets that can be handed out to the people who are coming to pay their respects. If you give this job to a family member to tell them to pass out these items, a lot of times they can miss out on those conversations that are going to be happening when people are going to be walking in. So those are going to be the instances where people will be offering their condolences and just giving you their support. But if it's going to be a family member's job to kind of hand out things, they're going to miss out on that. When walking into these churches and venues, families may have questions on where they're going to be sitting. And it can be a little thing, but an awkward thing if they're looking back and forth trying to figure out where they do have to sit. If the memorial service is going to be for cremated remains, oftentimes a procession can take place from the back of the venue to the front. And the funeral professional can be the ones to organize that. And they can either carry the cremated remains down themselves or make the person or family member who will be carrying those cremated remains more comfortable. In today's society, there are a lot of instances where people aren't religious in the aspect of the tradition of going to church. A lot of people may have their own religion that they keep to themselves, but they just don't go to church as often as they would like to or would want to. So in those situations, families may be unfamiliar with when to stand, when to sit. And there are some funeral professionals who will actually sit in the front of the church for this reason. and they'll stand when they're supposed to, and they'll sit when they're supposed to, or kneel when they're supposed to, so the family members and the people who are grieving can kind of follow along with them. And the same can be said for the end of the funeral service as well. There are some instances where people don't know when to get up and leave, whether it's during a last song or after a last song. I have seen some instances where a funeral professional has not been present and the family has just kind of looked around because they weren't certain when they were supposed to get up and exit. If you do have a funeral professional who is present, that you are paying to be there, they can kind of walk up and tell everybody when to leave and just help everything flow a lot better. Once again, a lot of these things that I have been stating are really small details in the grand scheme of things, but they can leave awkward situations if families don't know what to do. And when you're grieving and when you're going through that process, you have so many other things on your mind that you're worrying about. You don't necessarily want to have to think about all of these other little things that can take place during the actual memorial service as well. So it is helpful if you do have a funeral director present for these situations, but once again, it is not a necessity. So if you feel like you're able to handle all of these details yourself, or if you do have a family member or a close friend who is willing to take care of these things for you, then that's awesome, and it can definitely help to cut down costs of a funeral service. I hope that this video was helpful in explaining a couple of things. If you like this video, you can always give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will see you all in the next video.